Well, let's get into it. So, we had our little pre-show chat, and to give any listeners some inside baseball, we didn't watch a whole lot of the MMA that was offered this past weekend. That was a pretty unfortunate UFC card. The Span versus Krylov main event fell through on the day of. Nikita Krylov fell ill and had to pull out of the main event. So Span was left without an opponent.
If Augusto Sakai goes to a decision, that's a shitty card. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, that's Augusto Sakai's MO. That's a fight I'm glad I didn't watch right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of felt for Span. I watched his post-fight, or not really post-fight, he didn't fight, but his scrum, and the dude was in tears. He was taking it pretty tough. So I feel for him. Hope he gets. Hope they either rebook that one soon or he gets another opponent. I mean, I would hope it's not a main event of anything. But still, I don't like these guys to be losing out on their payday on the day of the fight too. So that's a lot of time and resources put into a fight camp for it to just not go down like that.
They did rebook it, but I mean, from what I watched, O'Day Osborne. I was watching O'Day Osborne. Charles Johnson was pretty wild. They took pretty much a whole round for a nut shot, which is a pretty ridiculous nut shot.
Dang.
Jordan Levitt, the monkey king, was zesty as hell.
He showed out. I liked his outfit and his post fight.
He disco stewed it, dude.
Straight platforms and everything, dude.
Yeah, dude. So that was pretty cool. But
Brendan Allen upsets Andre Muniz.
Yeah, Andre Muniz is a violent motherfucker too.
Yeah, I actually watched that fight just a bit before we started live today recording. I went back and watched it, and kind of surprising outcome. Brendan Allen looked great. I don't want to kick Andre Muniz when I was down, but I kind of wonder if maybe there was something affecting him in that fight, because he seemed to gas out pretty early on. Like by the second round, he didn't really have much left for him. So
he almost was taken back by his fate. Like, okay, go ahead, dude. There it is.
And when his corner started to tell him, like, hey, only take the fight down if you're sure you can get on top, I was like, okay, so he's done. Because if you're supposed to be the bigger grappling threat, you kind of figure, like, you don't care what the situational grappling is to get it down. But, good showing for Brendan Allen. He's probably going to take Andre Muniz's, I think he's 11th ranked on Tapology. So, I mean, this could thrust him into the top 10 because of how impressive of a performance it was. And he got the finish. He got the submission over Andre Muniz, too, which is kind of wild. So, good for him. We'll see how things look moving forward in that middleweight division for Brendan Allen. There's, I would say Andre Muniz was one of the brighter prospects who'd already put some work in this division. He'll be going back to the drawing board. And now I want to say, Brendan Allen, of course, I can't discount him as a prospect after that performance. It wasn't someone who was necessarily on my radar before that. But now I feel like we have to look a little bit further down in the middleweight rankings for individuals named Bo Nickal, to be to be the next savior of this division. And we'll get into that for this UFC 285 card. The one fight I did watch live on the night, Tatiana Suarez versus Mateusz de la Rosa. I couldn't miss this one. I was watching it on my phone in my car. And I do want to touch on this performance a bit, because Tatiana Suarez was out for almost 4 years, coming back at flyweight for her first fight back against Mateusz de la Rosa. And I was, like you kind of mentioned a little bit before we started recording, I was a bit underwhelmed, but I had high expectations.
Right.
It was pretty obvious that there was some rust to be shaken off there for Tatiana. She didn't look quite like the physical force that I thought she was going to be. Her wrestling pedigree can't be questioned, but she was going for some head and arm throws and some sloppy stuff that I was like, what's going on here? But she gets the win anyways. About 2:30 in the second round, she gets the jumping guillotine and puts Mateusz de la Rosa away. I almost don't really know how much to credit this to, Mateusz de la Rosa, because she didn't really have any moments in that fight. Her takedown defense looked good, and to her credit, she was able to get back up a few times, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. I thought this could potentially be one-way traffic for Tatiana, but she, like I said, she didn't really have any moments. Tatiana was never really in any trouble. She just did better than getting destroyed.
Right.
So, yeah. So, you were going to say something?
No, I just, that was a good guillotine though. Like that crank that she put on it was like, whenever you can see the back muscles when they're cranking on, and then it just gets tighter. That's something that I enjoy watching, as weird as that sounds. A good guillotine that you can see has a good camera angle on it, and you can kind of see the mechanics of that. That's always that's an exciting thing to see. It's like a nice, like when you watch basketball and you see a dude have a nice jump shot, or you watch baseball, a guy with a good swing, like that kind of like the work that they put into it, and they're able to put it on display for us. It's pretty exciting. I guess that's all I can really say. I really like the technical aspect of it, and when you mix it with the strength that she has, you can see like that squeeze is legit. So
yeah, definitely. A little unfortunate to hear in her post-fight scrum, Tatiana mentions that she had some back problems in her training camp leading up to this fight. Apparently she had to take a whole week off, and then another week was all light work. So not happy to hear that. That's really unfortunate, because as we know, she has a history with neck injury, really bad knee injury, and then now to hear that she's potentially having trouble with her back. I hope it's nothing too serious, but man, like it's disappointing because I don't want to say disappointing. It's unfortunate, but because her ceiling is so high,
right.
But we'll see. She intends to go back down to strawweight, and she's already jumped back into the rankings at number 13 at strawweight. There's a lot of interesting matchups for her there. I think a lot of that strawweight top 10 is booked right now, but I think I'd be interested in maybe a Yan Xiaonan fight, maybe a Mackenzie Dern fight. That'd be pretty fun.
That would be very nice. Yeah, that'd be very nice. Yes. I don't think Dern would take that. That's such a terrible matchup for her. I don't think she would take it. I hope that they would just book it and say, what the fuck, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But it just really sucks that neck, back, and knees are really hard to come, and she has all three.
Yeah.
If it was a shoulder thing, it was a wrist thing, an ankle issue, fine. I'm sure that they can get through things like that. But knee, back, and neck, that's just like unavoidable pain. You just can't get rid of that, and it just fucks with you.
Yeah, and especially if you're a pure wrestler, essentially,
right.
And that's your bread and butter. Those are the injuries you don't want to have, and there wasn't a whole lot of exchanging in stand-up strikes in this fight either. I mean, Tatiana pretty much tried to close the distance really quick, but the instances where there was some strikes thrown, I'm getting a lot of feedback. You might want to move your mic or something, or just nudge it. Maybe that's better. But in the instances where there was a few strikes thrown, they didn't look great. But like I said, rust to be shaken off. We'll see what she looks like moving forward. I still think she's at strawweight. She's sure to be bigger than a lot of the girls there. Montana surprisingly was bigger than Tatiana, which I'm not super familiar with Montana De La Rosa. I haven't seen a ton of her fights, so I don't know. Tatiana just always looks huge to me in her social media photos. She does look big.
Yeah, she does look so imposing.
Yeah, so I always thought she would be massive for strawweight, and I think she's still got a bright future there. So let's see. That is pretty much all the MMA I watched this past weekend.
Right.
I can't really confidently comment on anything else. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to touch on. I know we both watched that spectacle of influencer boxing match, but we don't got to talk about it.
He won. He won for sure. It's very frustrating. The grabbing. I used to be. I think we talked about, I really watched a lot of boxing when I was younger, and I had forgot what a headache it can be to watch guys that just grab, and that really makes me grind my teeth when I see just grabbing, and I hate it. And then that ref, just every single time he had to get involved, and it's just like, dude, what? And and then to the thing about this spectacle, and I think it'll be the last point that I make, is just it really shows how stupid the general sports consumer is. It really proves to me that, because if you're just there to watch it because it's cool, okay, but then it just seems like everybody has a take. Everybody has to be, this is why he's gonna win, and I'm so smart because of it. And then everybody, like Tommy Fury, he never fought anybody, and then the other people are like, Jake Paul is just fought. Everybody has to be, and it's just the tribal nature of the country, of our society right now. Just, it's like, it really turns it into a dirty tribal soup, and it just, and then when you put that it's like a combat sport, it really pisses me off. I get like such a searing temple headache watching that shit.
I feel like being kind of less exposed to other more traditional sports, that I feel like in the combat sports space, like you mentioned, so many more people are willing to have like the most uninformed casual take and have no fear of ridicule or you know, consequences from that, where it's like, if you're going to go and just talk nonsense in football or you know, for the other sports, like people are going to jump on you and be like, what the fuck, you don't even know what you're watching, shut the fuck up and sit down, casual. But in combat sports, it's just a free for all. Like people want that kind of engagement. It doesn't matter if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about at all. But then again, here we are with our MMA podcast. Well, we're smart.
The thing about it is though, is like, I'm not going to stare into your eyes and tell you that this is how it is. You're stupid if you don't agree. I honestly, like, I do this because I want to be a better consumer and more respectful of what these guys actually do. Because it really, I take it as, like, when I run my fucking mouth about shit. I used to run my mouth. Or used to. I run my mouth, and I'm a hating ass motherfucker by nature. So it really does, because when you're like, okay, well, what am I fucking talking about every Tuesday night? Like, what the fuck am I really doing? Okay.
Yeah.
So I sit down and watch. I'm like, god damn, these motherfuckers. Like, when Jamal Hill won, and when you can tell he like changed his family's life, it was like, hey, how about I don't talk shit about this guy because he had a wonky looking overhand right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the fuck do I know? And that really
maybe I won't shit on this performance that I watched for free. That
yeah. So it really doing this, I would hope more, and not to be like, oh, I'm better than anybody, but I'm going to come off as I'm better than everybody is. I take this as an opportunity to be like, oh, I know absolutely fucking nothing. Because I did think when we started episode 1, episode 2, I was like, I know so much about this shit. I'm so fucking, now that we're what, like almost 50 episodes into it, I don't know shit about what the fuck I'm talking about. But it's fun to talk with my friend about it, and hopefully a few people listen. And I've been wrong. I've been dead right, and I've been dead fucking wrong. And it's fun to see, you know?
Yeah.
But I never take it as like I'm the ultimate authority. And like and I'm sorry, I said the only point I had, but like one glaring, and it kind of goes over to the UFC thing, is there is Barstool Sports. Like, are you familiar with Barstool?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, tangentially. I don't like read their content or anything, but
yeah. Right. I used to really like a podcast on their sports podcast, and I couldn't watch it anymore or listen to it anymore, or both, because they do record, but because it was just so much like, just so stupid. Like, it was just so like, yeah, we know everything. And then you listen, then I always like to listen back and be like, yeah, you were fucking dead wrong. How are you going to address that you were dead wrong? But, and then they just don't, they just gloss over it.
Hand wave it away. No, they don't eat their crow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Dave Portnoy, to his credit, like went on he's like he founder everything and he really polarizing guy. But, he went on Joe Rogan, looked Joe Rogan dead in his face and told him, like, Tommy Fury's a nobody. He's an absolute nobody. He has nothing. He's not talented. Jake Paul is going to kill him inside a round. Dang. And it's, Joe Rogan is a meme of a meme, but to look that man in his face and just like blow cigar smoke in his face and tell him like, you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Yeah. And then everything Joe said came true by a million, and it wasn't like an outlandish thing. He didn't like call exactly how it was going to go. He just said, look, the guy's been doing this for a long time. He's expertly trained. Has an insane physique. He has an insane work ethic, and he's done this he's not impersonating a boxer. He is a boxer. Yeah. And he's like, no, he's not. Dave Portnoy looked him dead in his face. No, he's not. And then like 5 seconds before that, he said, well, the Patty fight was kind of close, but I mean,
God.
it's like, dude, oh, you own one of the biggest sports outlets on the planet now, and it's just wow, dude. That it's just the insane what hubris, like the hubris that these people have nowadays to just go on something like Joe Rogan and say something like that. You have to be, because back in the days, dude, no one would want to. Everybody would say, like, they would give you two answers, and Brendan Schaub is like the best at it, where he would say like, "Oh, Jake Paul's going to win in the first round," but he would basically, and then he can go back the next day and say, "I told you," and then he would have a tape of him saying, "Yeah."
I considered both sides. Yeah.
Now, no one even wants to do that, and they'll just tell you. And then if you question them, you're stupid. You're dumb. So I think that's just a microcosm of like how fucking stupid our society is, and how everyone thinks because they have a phone in front of their face, and they're just like they're taking in their own selected content on it and not listening to any outside or any opposing, any opposing viewpoints on anything. They just to go on Joe Rogan, smoking a cigar, and say the things that guy said is insane.
Yeah, man. I guess that it's they're two guys who demanded a lot of clicks, a lot of engagement, and at the end of the day, and I guess they kind of figure like everyone's looking forward and wanting the next chunk of content that they really don't give too much of a fuck about, like having to eat crow over just the worst takes possible. And I mean, it's something, and I think it's something like in terms of like the fight itself and both of their experiences and stuff. Like a lot of people don't really factor into, and especially I get it if you don't watch boxing, because I don't really, so I have to remind myself that like most boxers fight total cans for like their first 10-15 fights. That's pretty much the name of the game, and these guys have just pretty much been doing it in the spotlight, and they're kind of going through the motions. They're probably doing it a bit late for to make much of a go at it in terms of having an actual like long-term success. Well, I mean, how could I even say having a long-term successful boxing career when they're making the money? So, and in a vacuum it's successful, I suppose, but he's got that lined up. Who do you think was punching through their hat the most at that result? Was it Nate Diaz, because or is he's still going to potentially get a fight with?
I honestly believe they're going to have a rematch, and he's going to knock Fury out, and it's going to be a scripted deal. I personally believe that, and then it's like, okay, old men are back on the menu. Like, okay, I firmly believe that. It's just the faster this goes away, which I don't think it is. The faster this goes away, the better.
Right.
Because I'm not ready to see Wonder Boy fighting fucking, whoever. I'm not ready for that kind of shit. So.
Wonder Boy. Whoa, that's the name I wasn't expecting to get tossed around. But yeah, I mean, there's a steady supply of guys who just went through the MMA glue factory and got tossed out on their ass, who are like, hey, you are a combat sports veteran. You want to make a quick bag?
Yeah, well, I didn't care about seeing Woodley on his ass. I love seeing Ben Askren get knocked the fuck out. But there's going to be guys that I do care, like Wonder Boy. I don't want to see that, man. Now, I hate to use his name as like he would do that, because I doubt he would. But I'm just saying, like, there's just certain people, like, we're running out of names,
Right. Well, let's go ahead and shift focus back over to our beloved mixed martial arts and jump into this UFC 285 Jones versus Gane card, which is stacked. This card is fucking full to the gills, even without this main event. If Jon Jones had never came back and we just didn't have this main event, this is still a fucking rock solid card. I mean, at least for me. I mean,
one of the sickest fucking fight nights ever. You know what I mean? If you put Dricus du Plessis and Brunson ahead of Cody and Trevin Jones, that would be sick. And then the rest of the lineup down the way, like that would be sick as fuck.
Yeah. It is almost intimidating that we got to give all these breakdowns for this card.
Yeah,
thinking
know,
like,
dude,
man, who's going to not get as much detention as they deserve?
Like chicken hockey, like 1, maybe 2 decent fights for the last month or so. Now it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, and it's a deal too where it's like I'm looking at this card now as I kind of started to get into it over these past few days to kind of start thinking about our breakdowns and everything, and realizing that some of these fights that I was aware of that were booked and scheduled, I wasn't quite aware that they were on the same card. Like I keep forgetting that Gamrot versus Turner is on this card.
That's crazy, right?
So yeah, like I don't want to neglect anybody here, but there's even some cool fights. Plenty of cool fights, and I mean there's a lot of WMMA on this card too, and we're probably just going to talk about the Shevchenko Grasso fight, whereas on any other occasion this would be like, oh, it's fucking me being a big WMMA fan would be like, no, we're going deep on this, dog. But I don't think we're gonna I don't think we're gonna touch on Araujo versus Hibash on this episode, but
which is a banger of a fight. I'm going to watch that fight like intently.
Yeah. So let's start at the top. Let's go with what everybody wants to hear: the return of Johnny Bones Jones. It's been since 2020 that he last competed, where he won was it a split decision against Dominic Reyes? It was a decision either way.
It was a decision. Some would say he got lucky to walk away with that.
A lot of people. I've been hearing a lot of that actually. You want to set the table for us a little bit since you're the John Jones guy, man? I'll let you.
Okay. So there's a very real chance he loses this fight. I'm not gonna come out here and completely Dave Portnoy it and like, discount everything that Ciryl Gane is. We've had our moments on this pod where we're just like, this is the future of mixed martial arts. We're watching him in real time. Enjoy it now, folks. Like I've said that. I've said that myself.
I definitely have some of Ciryl Gane's DNA on my chin still.
Sure.
To this. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and it's a very good look on you. But the one thing that I don't like is that everyone's like, well, John was mid before, and now it's 3 years later, and it's like, yeah, he was. He didn't really have his best when he came out, but he has more world championship fights than Ciryl Gane has fights, period. So he's fought every type of fighter in any type of style, in any genre, any iteration of this, every era, almost every era of this sport. He's gone from the Spike TV, Fuel TV era. He's gone to the crazy, just pay-per-view fucking wild west of steroids and everything else. He was like the Brock Lesnar, the Brock Lesnar era of it. And he's in this new, where everyone's a hybrid, amazing athlete. Everybody is just out of their mind talented. And he is still considered the best that's ever done it. I think it does catch up to you as far as, well, he's just not going to out-athlete people. He's just not going to show up and be the best athlete in the building and go home and go back to partying. I think he's aware of that more than anyone else is going to, at least the analysts and everyone that are saying, like, he just doesn't have his fastball anymore. I think he's more than aware of that, which is why he went up to heavyweight. I feel like a lot of people are giving Ciryl Gane a lot of credit for something that, okay, he's had a great run, but he's looked his best against plodding fat guys.
We've definitely seen guys kind of run through the same like kind of level or type of opposition that Ciryl Gane has made his name off of in the UFC thus far. Yeah, Dontel Mays was decent shape. God dang it, Volkov, I mean, had his time, so, but I just don't think that it's fair to really put Ciryl this far. I think isn't John a underdog also in this fight? Let me see if I can pull up the line. I'm not sure if they have that stuff on Tapology. John is a negative 160. He's a slight favorite.
Oh, so he's a slight favorite. Okay. So I just don't feel that the one thing that really because I think that everyone's missing the forest for the trees when they're talking about it, because the people that are saying John's gonna win are the people that are like, look what he did to fucking Lyoto Machida. Look what he, and it's like, okay, that was a long time. You're wrong. And then the people are like, well, Dominic Reyes pretty much beat him, and look how Dominic Reyes is looked lately. Well, that's not the same thing. I think it's in the middle.
I have an explanation for the Dominic Reyes thing, by the way, but go on.
I'm excited for it. But the thing, I think what people don't really realize is that having the amount of title fights that he's had, and the one thing that I don't think people want to use it as a negative on him is that he is a psycho. He is a crazy person. And I'm
nodding in agreement right now. We're an audio podcast.
Psychopath. His ego will not allow him to lose. He will do anything in whatever it has to do. He will step over women, elderly, children, pregnant women to get to what he needs to do. And it's a cage fight, guys. It's a cage fight. This isn't a cricket match. This isn't golf. This is a fucking cage fight, boys. So he's going to do whatever. He will poke you in the eyes. He will fucking illegally hit you in the back of the head. He will fucking hold on to the cage. He will fucking do everything he possibly can to win this fight. And I don't think Ciryl Gane will. Also, Ciryl Gane has, against Tai Tuivasa, right? Got his ass knocked down. He's on the ground. If John Jones has anyone in that position, it's over. He is a psycho. He is a crazy. Someone brought this point up, so I'm not going to use it as my own. But do you remember when he had that high kick on DC, and it was like DC's eyes kind of glazed? John followed him like Michael Myers. Like he just followed him he kicked out the back of his leg.
DC's over here stumbling, and he's still just like, and he's
you just see him. That's Jason, but you just hear it. You just hear the piano music, dude. Like John is just like, oh, okay, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
If John could kill Ciryl Gane and his reputation would take it, he would kill him. He does not care, dude. He just wants to win. He wants people to think he's a good person, and he's admitted it. I'm a bad person trying to be a good guy. I don't care what you think about it.
I feel like I have seen as much watching the embeddeds and the countdowns over the last couple of days. We haven't had a lot of examples of John actually kind of opening up and speaking. He's always been tweeting and stuff like that, but to kind of hear his voice and kind of give us a little bit of an insight on how his head is working, and then also see the stuff that he's not trying to be so transparent about. I kind of get back to your inference that he is a psychopath. And like I said, like for the listeners, I was nodding my head in agreement, because you really do get the sense that there is a big mental aspect to John Jones and how he fights and how he prepares for a fight, that like literally there's not even a physical aspect in it that comes to play, because it almost seems like right now, and this isn't meant to be a dig at John Jones, but it seems like John Jones really has to convince himself before anybody else that he's going to go out there and he's going to be a warlord. And I know that like I said, I know that sounds kind of desperate, like, oh, this guy's having to convince himself that he's a good fighter. But the thing is, when he does successfully convince himself, I think that's when he goes into a flow state, and you get the experimental John Jones, the dynamic, the offensive dynamo that John Jones can be, who is willing to do shit that is like, who takes low percentage attacks and turns them into stuff that, like, I mean, they're low percentage for a reason, but his opponent's also just not expecting it to come. You don't know what you're going to get with John Jones, and it comes from all angles, and he's a finisher. So I know before this, when we were talking, and we were saying, like, you come in hard for John, and I'm going to go hard for Ciryl. But, I mean, I still have to give the nod to where it's at, because of what John has shown us that he's able to do. I mean, Valentina, not to switch gears or anything like that, but Valentina's probably going to get the 8th ruby on her belt on the same night. If they had switched to those new belts like earlier, like John would be working on his second set of 8 rubies. It would just be
gleaming red.
Yes.
And the thing about it too is that Ciryl hasn't gone. The last time Ciryl went against someone who had naturally God-given gifts, who had amazing physique, well-conditioned, was Ngannou, and then Ngannou out-game planned him and executed a game plan perfectly and won. He didn't just kill him like he normally does. He didn't have his fastball that night, but he stuck to his game plan and he won. John Jones has been game planning and executing game plans, tweaking game plans, having 2 or 3 different strategies in one fight, and slowing the fight down to where he can execute that for more than a decade now. So Ciryl hasn't gone against someone that's done that. Respectfully, all due respect, he can come out and have an amazing fight, and we'll be talking about how we said it here once, we'll say it again, he's the future of and he still will be after this. But I just don't think someone with the God-given talent that John has, the psychopathic nature that he has, the knowledge, the wealth of knowledge, the muscle memory, and the wherewithal and the know-how, all of that is not a good matchup for Ciryl. That being said, the 3 years that John's taken off, it would be a lot easier for him to be coming back against Curtis Blades, because I feel like Curtis is a wrestler. That's what John knows.
It's more
John
predictable.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this weekend. Like as a young boy, like as a young kid, I played baseball from when I was like 4 years old until I was like almost 20, right? And I hadn't played in years and years. My daughter's getting ready, and I was playing, and I could swing, I could throw, my mannerisms with my glove, tossing the ball left and right, because I had done it for so long. And John did that with wrestling and grappling. I think striking, he had to teach himself that, and so having all that rust is going to be hard going up against a world-class, amazing striker. So I think it's a terrible matchup on the other side, where he's going to have to kick off the rest of the striking. Whereas if it was like kind of just, okay, I know how to wrestle, I know how to block a takedown, I know how to get an underhook, I know how to chain wrestle here, I know how to get off my back. Whereas it's a hybrid Muay Thai karate guy is going to be really hard to kind of knock off the rust right away.
I think that that's what I was going to get to next, is the rust and addressing that, because I've mentioned it before. We have seen earlier in his career, coming off of a long layoff, where John doesn't quite seem to get going. He had that fight with OSP. I'm sure everybody who's a big John supporter is tired of hearing about how he didn't perform. Like, he wasn't the Giga John Jones when he came back against OSP after his suspension. So I think that without a doubt, especially going up in weight and a weight class that he hasn't quite felt before in real competition. He's had 3 years to adjust to carrying that extra weight, but he hasn't quite had that time inside the ring to really feel when somebody's putting that weight on him also. And with the speed that Ciryl Gane possesses, a guy who, he moved, and it's really easy to talk about how, like, he moved to a weaker division, but right now in this current landscape, he didn't. He actually went to a deeper division. Like, light heavyweight fucking sucks right now. And really the heavyweight is, it's very top heavy. I'm not going to say it's a super like deep division, but if he's healthy and he sticks around and he puts a win streak together against Ciryl Gane, and Aspinall, Curtis Blades, Pavlovich, we're talking undeniable GOAT status. But I do think, and I think he can do that, but it just specifically in the first fight back with this particular opponent, with a guy who's especially not going to fall, I wouldn't say fall victim to, because I think John's more trying to convince himself in this mental battle, but a guy who has a coolness and a calmness and a collectiveness where, you know, he said it many times, like Ciryl Gane looks at this, it's just a sport. It's just a sport. He's not going to lose any mental battle here. And I feel like, in a way, that could be a downside, because I talk about how I cherish these perfect triangle fighters, these guys who are the perfect balance of fighter, athlete, mixed martial artist. And maybe Ciryl Gane isn't necessarily that. I think he's mostly a martial artist and an athlete, and not so much on the fighter end. But we've seen that hasn't necessarily been too much of a detractor for him. I think, obviously, to address this biggest hole in dealing with a guy with the skill set of Jon Jones, Ciryl Gane has the grappling issue. You know what I mean? He doesn't have nearly the wealth of wrestling experience that Jon Jones possesses. And we saw Francis Ngannou, you know, exploit that in their fight. And I don't want to just completely hand wave it off and say, well, he wasn't expecting that. In truth, I don't think he was. And I think that's part of the reason why Francis Ngannou was able to make that work as well as it did. But even then, his wrestling's not going to get better enough, you know, in the time, you know, what was it, like 2022? So yeah, in a year, it's not going to get better enough to deal with Jon Jones. But here's another concern of mine when it comes to Jon Jones and that wrestling pedigree, is that he weirdly doesn't use it in some instances. I was going back and looking at the Dominic Reyes fight, and I know, you know, that was a long time ago already too. I'm not talking about the fact that he kind of, you know, was perceived to be underperforming in those fights, but no wrestling in the Dominic Reyes fight. He didn't even attempt any takedowns in the Thiago Santos fight. I think one of the biggest mysteries for me is what makes Jon decide to wrestle. Because we've seen it time and time again where he goes out there and it seems like he kind of wants to beat guys at their own game, or kind of just show that he's maybe the completely mixed, you know, the perfectly balanced martial artist. I kind of feel like he can certainly out wrestle Ciryl Gane, but if he decides he's going to go out there and initially decide not to wrestle with Ciryl Gane, that he's probably going to have to go there or go to his wrestling out of necessity. So I think Ciryl Gane has what it takes to beat him on the feet, and it's not to say that Jon can't catch him. I mean, if Tai Tuivasa can touch up Ciryl Gane and drop him, you know, and catch him like that, certainly Jon Jones can. But is he going to wait too long before he goes to his wrestling? Is he going to be encumbered by that extra weight that he's not used to carrying around across 25 minutes in a real active live, you know, combat, and not with fucking Dontel Mays and the Crochet Boss and Walt Harris? You know what I mean? Like, is there any concern that he's going to resort to his wrestling too late, when he's probably already, you know, he feels the extra burning in his legs from carrying around the extra weight, and not having to be, not being able to go at the pace that he wants to go at? Because I think that Ciryl Gane's certainly going to put a different pace on him that he's not, or he probably wasn't expecting to see when he initially made his plans to go up to heavyweight.
Sure. And that's fair, and I agree with you on all of those. I just think he's going to need a little bit of luck as far as, like, not the traditional way of getting the fight to the ground, whereas maybe a sweep or a scramble. And in those cases where the non-traditional aspects of fighting, where it's not like a glory kickboxing fight, where Ciryl can kind of style and move and look cool, when it gets gritty, when it's fucking dirty, and it's fucking, you're side by side and you have a weird angle at a guy, I hope, or I mean, I guess the fan in me hopes that he gets that opportunity, because that's where he really shines, is when it's just fucking chaotic and weird, and there's not an angle there, or maybe that's not the most textbook way to get a guy to the ground or to keep a guy there. I hope that something like that happens for him and he can really exploit that, because I think the scrambles and sometimes the awkwardness that cage fighting can lend itself to, and the less suboptimal setting that they might be in, you know, if they trip, or maybe a cut, or you know, maybe like an injury, or just any little thing where it kind of like, it's just not perfect conditions for Ciryl, is when, because Jon it's going to have to be almost perfect conditions for Ciryl to really shine, where Jon, he can win in so many different ways.
He finds a way to win. He was behind in that second Daniel Cormier fight when he, you know, when he landed that head kick and then went into stalker mode, for sure. So yeah, he's faced adversity too.
one of the best. I mean, in my opinion, DC is the best heavyweight in UFC history.
He's beat a few generations of some total greats. Like, he's literally cleaned out like multiple generations of the light heavyweight division. It's crazy.
And DC is the best heavyweight. He fought the best heavyweight. Now DC wasn't at that weight, but DC was still. I mean, whatever you want to say, he was a heavyweight fighter. He was just he was like at a lighter weight that night.
Yeah, I think the key to success, ironically, might actually be the clinch, because for Ciryl Gane, because I know that's where John does a lot of his best work also, and that's where he gets a lot of his takedowns, being that he has a Greco-Roman background. I would be really worried for Ciryl Gane if we are in the first round still, and then John like goes for like a low single or something like that. Then I'll be like, oh shit, that's bad.
If he just decides to fucking sleeve it.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
But Ciryl Gane in the clinch has shown to be stronger than a lot of opponents that seemingly I would have thought might be stronger than him. You know, he just made Derek Lewis look like he was nothing in the clinch. And not that Derek Lewis is like some kind of tactician in the clinch, but he's, if nothing else, he's physically imposing, and you thought he might have a strength advantage there. But everybody who he's gotten into the clinch with he's totally controlled and thrown around, and he has really, really sneaky, like slicing elbows inside the clinch. Matt, this is such a fascinating fight, and this is exactly the guy who I wanted John to come back against too. I know, they were talking about that Stipe Miocic fight possibly on the table for him when he was first really seriously starting to talk about coming back finally. I'm glad that that's not going to happen at this point. I mean, no disrespect to Stipe Miocic, but Stipe is kind of a part-timer. It's been almost 2 years now, I think.
I would be surprised if he's working out MMA more than 3 times a week at this point.
Oh yeah. I mean, he was pretty stoked to be a full-time firefighter the last time I checked, so good on him. Great noble occupation, but I'm not excited to see him get into a ring with Jon Jones, especially if Jon goes out there and puts the work on Ciryl Gane. Like, I would need to see a different look. Let's see, where was I going with that though? As far as like the future of the division. Well, yeah, Ciryl Gane's strengths. I'll just kind of like go back to what I think the path to victory would be for him, and it includes a lot of there's a lot of question marks, because it depends on what we see from Jon Jones. That we can only predict so much have from him being out for so long. Like I said, it's only fair to assume that there's going to be some ring rust, and the last time we saw him in action, he wasn't looking so great. I think I will know a lot more depending on what kind of wrestling he uses in that first round, but I think that Ciryl Gane needs to put a pace on him that he was not expecting at heavyweight when he initially started off on this path and started putting muscle on his body. Ciryl Gane needs to come out there, I think, work the leg kicks, only be in leg kicking range, and if you need to be closer, then you should be in the clinch. And if he's able to kind of nullify the wrestling, at least for the first couple of rounds, or if John's ego kind of comes out in a way that thinks he doesn't have to use the wrestling, Ciryl Gane certainly needs to exploit that, and hope that, in those later rounds, getting into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, if it goes that far, hopefully making John feel that extra weight and feel extra encumbered, and make it so that that speed difference is amplified due to the kind of pace that Ciryl Gane's going to have to put on them. Make John slower, and I think that opens up a whole lot more for Ciryl there, because once it comes to a scramble, I mean, you really got to hope that John's legs aren't there anymore, and that's probably the best shot that Ciryl has at surviving a wrestling offense from John.
Yeah, and I think we had made fun of John's training partners. Other people have as well. But the more I think about it, and then when seeing the size of these fucking guys today on that embedded,
Walt's big, dude. Walt Harris is fucking gigantic.
Smart, because he's having to carry their weight for rounds. He's carrying their weight, so it's almost like when you work out with a weighted vest. So he's so that it's almost smart, and it's guys who aren't alpha dogs who I'm going to go beat Jon Jones. It's I'm going to give Jon Jones the look he needs today.
Yeah.
And okay, and then I'm going to be huge, and John's going to have to carry me around on the mat for however long we're going to spar or train. And so John's those guys are a lot bigger than Cyryl's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like working out with a weighted vest on with those huge guys. So I'm thinking that that's what the strategy behind it was, where these guys kind of know their, I'm not, it's going to sound crazy, like they kind of know their position in the pack. You know
Their
what
meat.
I mean?
Their meat.
Yeah.
Their bodies.
Well,
and
their bodies, but like strategic, like, I guess I'm overly romanticizing it, but just like knowing their fucking place, like know your place, dude.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying too, because I don't think no one would call them.
Get like a Sergey Spivak in there. He's like, let me try and let me touch this motherfucker up a little bit. Or you get like a bigger guy in there that was still trying to make his name, and he might want, because one of the jokes too was, you used to go to Jackson Wink, and if you're his size, there's a decent chance that, you know, Winkle John will throw you in there with John on an open mat or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You had Holly Holm fighting nobodies.
I didn't tell you about the time I visited Jackson Wink and they threw me in there with John. I was there on the tour. No.
Because they thought you were Andre Arlovsky for a second. Andre, get the fuck. Oh, shit. Who the fuck? But what was I going to say? Like, there's videos of John, like, fighting, like, dudes with, like, hippie ass fucking dreadlocked white guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what the fuck? And like, yeah, he pays his monthly dues. It's wrestling practice. He's around John's size. There you go.
That gets back to what I was saying about John's confidence being like one of his like weird like superpowers, is he just make him because that's the vibe I get from the guys he's going with, is that they're not necessarily bringing in superstars. It's not an iron sharpens iron. It's a let's feed John. And the more we can gain, you know, the more confidence boost he gets from this. Because I mean, like, what skills or looks does Jorgen De Castro bring into this training camp to get him ready for Ciryl?
Yeah, be heavy and be a little bit more than a warm body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
just understand where you are, understand how to fall, understand how not to fall. Yeah, understand how to pull a punch. You know, so. I think at first I was making a lot of fun of like, damn, these fools look fucking crazy. The pirate,
yeah.
And then I saw him like, whoa, he's using them as like a weighted vest. That's really smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know what else we can really add to it. I think we broke it down pretty well, but
I just think Ciryl has no. I think it's a little bit of like of gamesmanship. It was like, I don't train, I don't watch tape, I think he's kind of joking.
I play FIFA instead.
Yeah,
I'm not worried
yeah. But even then, even if he was putting in that he was grinding tape, even if he was, John is a genius, dude. He, for all, like, Steve Jobs and all these fucking sociopaths, you know, fucking Jeff Bezos and all these motherfuckers. John has that in his head. He's very smart. He's like a savant when it comes to this shit. He'll kill your family, dude. He will kill your family. So, and I like that shit. You know
I would not want to be on a stranded island with John Jones and in a group. You know what I mean? Because I feel like if you end up on a fucking, you know, plane crash and you and like a dozen survivors and John's one of them, he's going to be thinking about killing someone in their sleep to feed the rest of the group because he's a fucking psycho like that. I hope he hears.
He wants everyone to know, like, John did it though.
Yeah.
Just remember, I did it, guys.
I made the hard call for the group.
Yeah. And I did it this way, guys. You like me, right? You know what I mean? It's like when a cat comes in with a bird, and they think like, I just killed this animal here, and they're like, you like that? You guys like it when I kill animals? Mm-hmm. You're safe.
Yeah.
And he wants. I said it once. I'll say it again. If he could kill Ciryl Gane in there and take no. It wouldn't affect his legacy or it wouldn't make him look crazy. He would do it. Mm-hmm. That's the only is the view that he would have as a killer or just like the stigma he would get after that is the only thing keeping him from not doing that.
He'll certainly be deleting his tweets into perpetuity if that were the case. One more thing about about Ciryl Gane, and this is actually not a good point. One thing that kind of gives me a bit of pause is I'm not a big fan of Fernand Lopez, especially after his fight with Francis Ngannou. I feel like, and then I'm also finding out that Fernand is his manager and his coach, and doing both.
Okay.
I prefer it if guys have a separate manager that's not their coach also. I thought he got way too invested and injected himself into the whole storyline when he was matching up with Francis Ngannou, and I think that was possibly, and I mean, I'm not going to take away Francis Ngannou's win there, but I think that was not to Ciryl Gane's benefit. And I don't think that he's necessarily going to do that in this fight with John, but I don't think that Ciryl Gane is the kind of, I mean, I don't think that Fernand Lopez is what you need to really build a game plan against John. If Ciryl goes out there and gets it done and gets this W, I'm going to give him a lot more of the credit in there, because John fights like he's playing jazz music, and Fernand Lopez, I don't know. I mean, the jury's still out on him. I don't know a whole lot about other guys that he works with, other than, you know, previously Francis and then now Ciryl. But I would really be so fascinated by the idea of Ciryl kind of moving on and exploring other camps and other coaches, because I think that he can still be molded. He seems very coachable, and by all accounts, he learns really fast. So I would love to see some other guys get a chance to work with him and mold him into something even better than what he currently is.
Faraz, like a Faraz Sahabi.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a crazy resource in this last month or so, like listening to him talk on YouTube about it, because he's trained with John, he's rolled with John, and his insight into it is like, now this guy, he's going to do everything he can. Like, it's not it's a weird thing that humans either have or they don't, and John just has it. Like, he'll do whatever it takes.
Well, let's go ahead and give our official picks.
I got John Jones 4 rounds to 1.
Decision. Okay. Interesting. I am going to. Am I gonna pick Ciryl for the? I said fuck it. We'll go opposite. I wanted to go hard, you know, to give the listeners a little bit of insight. I was like, let's really.
So crazy? I was thinking like, man, Ciryl could win this. I was thinking I was like, okay, I'm going to build. I was on the treadmill before this, and I was like watching all of his fights, and I was like, but the thing is that it's just, he's beat, like, if he had beaten like a Curtis Blades, if he had beat Stipe, if he had beat Aspinall, or, you know, like those kind of people, or one of the Moldovan bros, I would have been like, yeah, okay, he's fucking, yeah. But he's really beating plodding fat guys,
right,
or skinny fat guys that don't really have a game plan. And the guy who was trained by his trainer and manager out game planned him. You would think of anything else, he would have had a good game plan going into it because of the intimate knowledge that they had of each other.
Right.
And Francis would have just won by knockout.
And that's
nothing you can do.
Yeah. And
but
sorry.
Planned? No, you're right. Go ahead, dude.
No, I was gonna say great point, because that's another thing too about another downside about Fernand is, like, you should have been more prepared for Francis because of Fernand. Like, Fernand should have nothing should have been a mystery, but hey.
Yeah, you don't go against like a Henry Hooft, or you don't go against anyone really, any of the top guys of Faraz. You don't go against God dang it, Matt Brown, and you don't train with them for all those years, and then they don't put something in there to where, like, you have to overcome even that much knowledge. Like, it didn't seem like Francis really overcame any type of, like, oh shit, they didn't throw him any type of curveball. There was really no type. I mean, besides just what Ciryl does anyway, which is get out of the way.
Mm-hmm. You know? I mean, I did looking back and rewatching that fight also, I was impressed by, and one thing that still kind of gives me a lot of faith in Ciryl Gane is how, against everybody else other than like Stipe, because he had to wrestle Francis Ngannou, against everybody else, no one's ever been able to just negate Francis's stand-up. And then, like, I'd say halfway through round one in that fight with Ciryl, Francis just looked like any other guy. Like, he was not the, like, I was like, fuck, you know, with anybody else, I would have been like biting my fingernails thinking like it's only a matter of time before he bull rushes them and just starts swinging wild. And that was just never an issue with Ciryl. And I think that's a good insight into just how good he is on the feet and how much, you know, how fast, because he hasn't been training for that long either.
But
the dude's really.
That was what his coach taught him, though. I can almost guarantee you, it was all just his God-given ability,
him,
because it was all basically in and out and moving and getting away from him.
Yeah, he's great at getting in and out of the pocket. He never just sits there for too long and admires his work or watches the paint dry. He's in and out, and I think that's going to be really, really important with John, because, like I said, be at kicking range or in the clinch, never in between. But yeah, man, fascinating one. I'm gonna go ahead and, just to be different, I'm gonna pick Ciryl Gane still. I think he can get it done. I think it'll be fucking awesome if he does. And even if he does, I think we're looking at a trilogy. Either way,
it's not going to be boring. It's going to be like, oh fuck,
right?
You know what I'm saying? I think John can win boring. John can win an ugly fight. Ciryl, I don't know if he has it in him to win an ugly fight.
And I think too, it's very circumstantial, with it being John's first fight back after a long layoff too. If John had came up earlier and maybe had, you know, even one fight, you know, to shake the rust off, about, you know, 2 or 3 fights in, and then he fought Ciryl, I would probably pick Jones. Even now, I have to concede that Ciryl is a dog. He shouldn't be a favorite for anybody. But I think, like, yeah, if the circumstances were different, I would pick John without question. But right now, I think there's a lot to potentially exploit if Ciryl goes out there and minds his P's and Q's and hopefully gets something out of his corner. But like I said, we both agree. I think it'll be all Ciryl if he gets it done.
Right.
All right, man. So let's move on to this co-main event. We have WMMA action. Valentina Shevchenko is back. She only competed once in 2022, back in June, against Taila Santos, where she won a very, very close split decision. To this day, a lot of people think Taila Santos won that fight, and it's a fight that should have been a split decision. I still gave it to Valentina Shevchenko. I thought that, as ugly as it looked, and for a lot of the same reasons that we were kind of giving the nod to Volk against Islam for, you know, being in a bad position and still just kind of finding a way to just fight through the toughness and generate offense there. She gets that W. Aside from that, I mean, Valentina Shevchenko has looked impeccable in her title reign at flyweight, with no other fighter giving her pretty much any problems at all. People go back and talk about, you know, Jennifer Maia did okay, but Jennifer Maia won a round maybe by controlling her against the cage. Nobody's put her in quite the kind of trouble that Taila Santos put her in, and even then, like I said, there was never like a locked in. Well, was there a rear naked choke? I mean, she attempted rear naked chokes, but it wasn't quite there. She's never been in.
I think the Volk comparison is very apt in this case.
It's pretty much it. Yeah, like we never really felt like Volk was actually. It was a bad position, but he never really felt like he was in danger. And you know, she's standing across the cage from Alexa Grasso, who came up to flyweight, and now how many flyweight fights does Grasso have? She is 4-0 as a flyweight, with wins over Jeon Kim, Macy Barber, Joanne Wood, and Viviane Araujo, who also fights earlier on this card, who we mentioned. Man, let me think. How am I going to kind of look at Alexa Grasso here with rose-colored glasses? Because going into this fight, I just keep on saying, I don't really see anywhere or any path to victory for Alexa Grasso here, aside from the fact that she's a Mexican who will be fighting for gold. And in combat sports, Mexicans, Mexicans level up in combat sports when there's gold on the line. And I know that's your cue to make fun of their soccer team, maybe, but like I said, that's why I specified combat sports. So I mean, I do believe, you know, barring any potential injuries that we don't know about that she might be bringing into this fight, I trust that Alexa Grasso will be in top form. I trust that she's going to be ready to perform and you know, to the best of her abilities, and it might be the best Alexa Grasso that we've ever seen. and it probably still isn't going to do her any good against Valentina Shevchenko here, because at the end of the day, Alexa Grasso is a boxer, and she's really good at that one thing. She's competent in all other areas, but nothing that's going to pose a serious threat to Valentina Shevchenko that I see. Certainly, we could see. I feel like she's gonna have to count on Valentina having an off night, man. And I don't want to just kind of like wave it off like that and be like, she's got no chance here. But I really can't sell this fight or sell Alexa Grasso as a game challenger in this title fight. And I don't know if you want to take a stab at it, but what's your?
Does Valentina training in Japan have it? Like, does that, like, changing camps like that, does that matter?
I think she's been doing this for a while too, where she's kind of just training on the road with Pavel and her sister, and it never seems to have been a factor for her before. In fact, I bet if you probably forced her to stay in one place and not let her travel, she'd probably
That's all I got, dog. That's all I got. It's like changing scenery like that, and then having, but yeah, it's just she's so, all the things we talked about with John, as far as just the wealth of muscle memory knowledge in a title fight, how to win them and how to win them ugly, is a skill in and of itself. And she can win it any way that you want, any way that Alexa wants to try and beat her, she can win it. She's better at everything that Alexa does now. She's better at everything. So that's very hard. Like when you go to like the upset of like Alex Pereira against Stylebender, like, as crazy as it sounds, Pereira just had that much more power. He just has that much more power. Grasso doesn't have more power. She's not a better grappler. She can grapple, but it's more reactive. It's not like a setup type of grappling where it's like she's kind of like testing and like trapping Valentina. She's not going to trap her. It's going to be hopefully the arms out or the neck's up a little too high, or she can grab a leg lock in some weird scramble that we weren't seeing. She's not going to set up an arm bar. She's not going to set up a crazy submission. She's not going to have a one punch knockout. There's no chance. She's not. Valentina's just not going to be there for that. So. Leg kicks. Valentina's gonna leg kick the shit out. Her legs are going to be hurt. Like, I just don't see it, man.
And I've never seen the necessary or the prerequisite killer instinct out of Alexa Grasso either. I mean, even if she manages to catch Valentina Shevchenko, I really have to trust that she's gonna see red, to quote the meme, and really go for it, because as good as her hands look, when she's boxing, I don't feel like that necessarily translates to a lot of the other things that come along with boxing, like effective footwork and good head movement and everything. Like, she could put some really nice combinations together, but it's not. I'm not really sold on her defensive boxing either, because she's not fighting girls who are testing it very well. Like, going back to the Araujo fight, that fight was just so back and forth, and I don't mean back and forth in terms of swings and momentum. I mean back and forth in terms of, it almost felt like, and the commentators even mentioned this, it almost felt like they were taking turns, like, okay, I'm gonna strike and then you're gonna strike, and we're just gonna do this for the entirety of this fight. Neither girl really tried to take over the fight or disrupt the pace. It was just kind of trading shots. It looked like sparring, and I don't think Valentina feels any pressure going into this fight at all. And that's another thing too, is you got to at least make Valentina worry or think that she's going to face some adversity, because if not, you're going to let her be comfortable out there in the faster, because she takes like the first round off pretty often. She's not a fast starter. Valentina will kind of like
points in a deal. A lot of those men, or those people, they do that. You got you got Peter Yan. Volk's not so much that, but you can see that he has that tendency to do that. Fazeev kind of does that, where they fill you out and then they go, okay, thank you, and then they thank you for the info, and then they capitalize on what they see in real time. But yeah, you're right, man. They should kind of, if you just let her get into her flow and let her download everything that you're doing, it's not gonna. There's just no chance.
Yeah, and going back to that, what I mentioned about the lack of footwork there. Not that it's atrocious or horrible, but I think, I mean, still to this day, not to fucking ride her jock so much, but I think the best striker that Valentina's fought, and she had a lot of history with her, was still Joanna, and that was her first title fight at flyweight where she actually won the title. And her answer for a girl who was even close to her level of striking was to trip the fucking shit out of her and not let her strike. And I mean, I remember being very frustrated watching that fight because whenever it seemed like Joanna was able to kind of get the reads and match the speed and start generating some offense on the feet, Valentina would surprise the fuck out of her and hit her with a trip and just kind of send her tumbling. And I can really see a kind of similar outcome for Alexa Grasso in this fight too, where, you know, before, you know, anytime she's able to find some success in the stand up and kind of try and make it her fight, it's just going to be derailed by a trip that she doesn't see coming, because I just don't feel like she offers enough variety in her movement or her speed, really. I think that's a lot of what it comes down to. I think she's very readable, and I think that Valentina is going to download her before they even get into the cage, and we might actually see Valentina come out. And I mean, is a bold prediction to say that she's going to come out and not even have to have that buffer period where she kind of reads her opponent. But I think it's in the realm of possibility for sure. I think the more exciting prospects involving Valentina Shevchenko are after this fight for sure. But I mean, that's for another episode.
I think we've talked about it before, is where, and to say this with all due respect to women's MMA, women's sports, it's at a different period of time than the men. It's almost where like men's, and it's just not as old of a sport.
Mm-hmm.
It's MMA in general is a young sport. WMMA is even younger as far as like the training, the exposure, that the youth, like, I mean, shit, like my daughter, I mean, she was born before 2 or 3 years ago, or 2 or 3 years sooner. She would have never gone into Muay Thai. It would have just been soccer. There's girls. In like Muay Thai classes and the wrestling classes that I've seen. There's a lot more girls. There's girl wrestling divisions now, whereas, you know, that just wasn't always a given. Now it's just a given. So it's just catching up into that lexicon of like what's possible for young women to go into as for a career or an avenue of training. And I think Valentina's kind of way beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's way beyond a lot of men. More, you know, men. She's like pound for pound talk. You know, and I just feel like we're gonna see that gap this Saturday, like what that means. You know, and I think a gal, like you said, like coming up, there's a gal who has that pedigree, who's done it, who's kind of going into that next phase of WMMA. Those girls are like getting a lot closer.
Yeah, I know. I think you're 100% right about that, and I mean, I've seen some people kind of push back against that and be like, oh no, it's stigmatizing towards women. But I mean, it's if you look 10 years ago, I can tell you there probably wasn't nearly as many women in MMA gyms. Period. It starts
just for, you know, self-defense classes or whatever it is, and like they kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, you know,
and that's not an indictment. It was just, you know, like there's just men and women. There's like softball, or, you know, it's not that it's women can't do it. They obviously can. They're some of the best combat sports in practitioners in the world are women. It's not, and which is amazing. It's just a young sport. It takes time for it to get into socially acceptable. I mean, you've got like one of the goats, pound for pound, who does not think women should fight. Like you should not fight. Like that's still a mind. That's still a mindset. Like Khabib Nurmagomedov, the whole part, like a whole wing of the sport, a whole part of the world does not think women should even not even be at the fights. They just don't like. There's, you know, Islam, that whole camp. Those guys don't think women should even be in the building.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
With
So
this,
don't fucking blame me, dude,
yeah,
for saying
no,
for pointing out the obvious. Yeah.
it's 100% true. I mean, even with this this emerging thing going on right now with the wardrobe stuff about the Venom gear, like in a lot of women's breasts, that which I haven't even really noticed, and I've been pretty on the pulse about WMMA, but apparently it's an ongoing thing with a lot of girls' breasts kind of popping out from the Venom gear, and they're speaking up about it. And I just saw like a fucking Saidjikov Rakhmonov, I think it was him. I don't want to like misquote if it wasn't him saying it, because it's a fucking horrible thing to say. But in response to some of that, he said they should be focusing on fucking on finishing their men at home instead of fighting and stuff. Like, fuck, like with a big old smiley face. Like, dude, that's very, very openly.
Huge Gamrot was on in Poland. Said, like, he kind of, I know they kind of took it out of context, or like he kind of had to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
But he was saying like, yeah, their women just should not be fighting. Like, it's just not, they shouldn't be doing it. And I don't, it's just weird. I don't like seeing it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm beyond that. Like, I have no problem. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. You do whatever you want to do. Like, you want to go serve the military? I'm not going to do it. You want to go do it? Go fucking do it. You want to go fight? Fuck yeah, that's awesome. You know, I hope that, I wish you luck in anything that you want to do. But it's just, the fact of the matter is, it's not as evolved, and to no other thing than it just takes time.
Yeah.
It just takes time, and it just takes more people. The talent pool has to be exposed to it. Just like because even in men's MMA, like you look at the heavyweight and light heavyweight division, those are all football divisions. They should be, by all accounts, the best divisions in the sport, and they're not. The smaller guys are the best because they can't make the baseball team, they can't make the basketball team, they can't make the football team. So they have, well, I'll just fight, I'll wrestle. So then they go into that. Whereas the bigger guys, like, I can play football, I'll just play football. So it's just going to take more exposure. Like, guys are going to see Jamal Hill and say, I can do this. Guys are going to see, you know, Curtis Blades, wrestlers, and go, I can do this. You know? Yeah. So even with the men's division, it just takes time and more exposure to the and get into the lexicon of people's lives.
And we're still at a point where, like you mentioned, those heavier divisions where, you know, where we would be getting some of the leftovers from guys who were maybe, you know, didn't make it in other sports that they would have normally been playing in the footballs and stuff, where for a long time those guys were still also going to be looking at a lot of the greats. I mean, a lot of the biggest names in boxing, where if you don't really watch boxing, a lot of guys could still probably name the heavyweight boxers. You know, that's the mainstream division. Your Mike Tysons, your Evander Holyfields, your Lennox Lewis's, Tyson Fury, just the list can go on. Those tend to be the names that people can quote more. So when they don't make it in the more traditional sports, they've probably been going to boxing first before they even consider MMA for a long time too. So even now we're still kind of getting the leftovers, even in those heavier divisions. And in back to WMMA, like, yeah, you're right though. Like, I think what we're seeing is still a lot of the standouts, or the women who kind of make it into the upper echelon of WMMA, are the ones who've been doing it since they were young. The ones who've been doing it, like Tatiana has been wrestling since she was 3, and that might not have been the best for her body. She might be a little worn out, but we mentioned, you know, Erin Blanchfield, you know, wrestling, doing jiu-jitsu since she was like 7, like really, really young. Like, those still tend to be the ones, or if they've been doing other combat sports for a lengthy amount of time and have a lot of experience there, like Valentina, Joanna, those still tend to be the ones who are going up and reaching the highest levels of it, whereas like the other ones who are still just like at 17, 18, 19, like, oh, there's something to this WMMA thing, I'll give it a shot and go into the gym. We'll see that change in time, but yeah, to get back to the matchup, Shevchenko versus Grasso, there's no mystery here. We're both picking Shevchenko heavy in this one. I hope it's at least a great fight, though.
Decision. It's going to be by decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a wash, too. 5-0, 5-0.
Let me see how many finishes or how many losses via finish that Alexa Grasso has. She's been submitted once, and that's it. No TKO or KO finishes. So I think that's actually a pretty solid prediction there, that it's going to be a decision. I in my mind's eye, I've been picturing Valentina putting the finishing touches on her, but that's probably the more likely outcome. So
Right.
There we go. And let's move on. We got so much to talk about still. We're going to get to our welterweight matchup of the evening. Shavkat Rakhmonov returns to action after his June 2022 win over Neal Magny via guillotine choke. And he's getting in there with Geoff Hands of Steel Neal. I knew that you would probably jump down my throat if I didn't remember the nickname. So,
thank you.
Huh?
I just said thank you very much for.
Well, you're welcome.
I'm taking Geoff Neal.
Geoff Neal coming into this fight, 2-fight win streak with wins over quality wins here over Santiago Ponzinibbio and Vicente Luque. Well, it was a hard-fought win over Santiago with a split decision, but he gets that round 3 finish against Luque. Really makes a statement there. And
gorgeous uppercuts.
Yeah.
Those are some of the prettiest Do yourself a favor, guys. If you're listening to my voice now, I'll give you permission. Put in the comments how gorgeous those uppercuts were. Because go ahead and pause it and look those up right now.
Uppercut scores, please, in the comments. That's all we want to see.
Break for the chance to go look at it. Welcome back, guys. How amazing was that, right? How great, how awesome was that, dude?
He's got a stiff test in front of him in Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat still undefeated in this division at 16-0 with wins over Neal Magny, Carlston Harris, Michael Prazeres, Alex Oliveira. This is probably we've been riding Shavkat's jock for a while now, and Neal Magny's a great win there. That Neal Magny kind of represented the gatekeeper of this division for a while, and kind of is, I would say, the milestone for him so far in this welterweight division. Definitely an eye test kind of guy, because of the names that I've just mentioned, those aren't going to be the names that are going to inspire a lot of the more casual viewership to think like, oh, this is the future of this division. But when you kind of watch Shavkat, when you kind of watch the way he moves, his top control, this variety of strikes, I would say one of his biggest attributes too that is a little bit underrated is just how calm he is in fighting. I've never seen this guy, and I mean, we'll see it, I guess, when someone puts him in trouble. And I think that this is against an opponent like Geoff Neal. I mean, you're picking him, so you're probably predicting that Geoff Neal is going to put him in some situations where we might finally see an emotional response from Shavkat, who up until now has been pretty much a Terminator in there. This is a hard one for me to break down because I don't really quite see the path to victory for Geoff Neal here, but I trust that it's going to be a really competitive fight. I know that Geoff Neal is not going to be anybody who's going to be ran through. And saying that, I think if Shavkat does manage to do that and just make Geoff Neal look like just another guy, it's going to be that much more impressive. But I'm kind of predicting a hard-fought unanimous decision here for Shavkat. Tell me how you feel about it, man.
I think that Geoff's gonna hit him with something that he hasn't had to face as far as in this level of. He's gonna get him with a solid, clean punch, and I think Shavkat's gonna. I think he might be, and this is just complete delusion, and maybe like a little bit of egotistical of me to say, but I just feel like he might be getting a little too. He might be drinking his own Kool-Aid, and he might be feeling himself a little too much. And Geoff has crazy fucking power.
Yes.
He's called Hands of Steel, guys. And I make sure that our friend Ephraim says that every time, because I want you guys to know. I want to pound that into people's head. Like, this guy hits different. In almost every fight and Geoff Neal's gone through to some dark places in his career where he's gone over to the dark side and back to where he's at now. And the one thing that always finds him in the best spot possible is his fucking power. And Vicente Luque was known as he had mythical chin, just mythical. You cannot break this guy, and he broke him. And his timing with punches, and that's the one thing that you can't really account for. And if we've talked about it all the time, it's the way your opponent reacts to when they get hit by you. And he has that type of power that can really throw game plans aside. It can really put you in, and I'm going to liken it to and I hate having to do this, but like the Gilbert Burns Hamzat deal where Hamzat got hit fucking hard and his eyes got big and he didn't want to wrestle. He should have wrestled a lot more. And when he did, he's not as good of a grappler, not even close as God damn it, as Gilbert Burns is. But when Gilbert, when Gilbert really got Hamzat, like, and really clocked him a few different times, you can tell that Hamzat changed. Like he's going to take that with him for the rest of his career. Where I think Hamzat got lucky, I don't think Shavkat's going to be so lucky as to. I think it's going to get him in the wrong spot, wrong time, and it's going to not be derailed, but it's going to be a learning moment for him.
So Geoff Neal is at a slight reach disadvantage, a 2-inch reach disadvantage, but looking at some of his stats, the man really, he gets it done with his hands. I mean, 60% of his wins in his entire career come by KO, TKO, and he doesn't necessarily lose his fights by being controlled either. So I think that does bode well for him in being probably the stiffest, without a doubt, the stiffest test that Shavkat will be facing so far in his career.
And this isn't the normal, like, Paddy the Baddy, Jordan Levitt, or the normal route the UFC goes. This is almost kind of like that. This is like, it's like the Hamzat versus Burns deal. And I don't even think people really even saw Burns in that same light. Now they do, where it's kind of like, oh yeah, Gilbert Burns. But a lot of people thought Hamzat was going to just run the fuck through him. And I think this is going to be almost the same type of deal. But I just feel like Geoff has that poison death touch that Gilbert really didn't have.
I'm going to go reverse a little bit, although I can certainly see it, for Geoff Neal. I think the
and I'm not saying this like notice. Efrain is the only person that can see me saying this. I'm not saying any of that with my fucking chest, guys. Like, none of that came from my chest, dude. That is all from the huge lump in my throat saying it right now, because I know I'm probably gonna look fucking stupid. Like, he's the guy that took Geoff Neal, like, when Hamzat's like fucking holding the fucking Stone Cold Steve Austin style, like, up over the fucking the cage. Like, remember you took fucking Geoff Neal that time?
They're gonna be putting his fucking Wolfsbane hat back on him and everything. And getting I do think I think what the most fascinating part of this is to really see that chin tested and see if he passes that test, and more importantly, see if he's able to effectively revert to his wrestling when that chin does get tested. Like, I want to see that from Geoff Neal, even though I'm picking Shavkat. That pick is is still quite a bit of blind faith here, because, like I said, I don't think he's really faced anybody who presents that kind of a threat to him. I mean, maybe somebody we don't know about, like, earlier in his career before he got to the UFC, but those guys were earlier in his career for a reason, So yeah, I think we're gonna learn a lot, definitely, when Geoff Neal touches him, and we're gonna have to see what kind of instincts Shavkat has when his world is fucking discombobulated and he doesn't have, he's rocked. That's what I do want to see. That I don't want to see him. I mean, it'll be impressive if he does fucking run through Geoff Neal too. But I think I'm all about. I want to learn more about the fighters that I'm excited about. Not to fucking take it back to WMMA, but if Erin Blanchfield just instantly got a takedown on Jessica in round 1 and got a submission, that would have been cool. But I wouldn't have made me more confident in her going forward. I'd just be like, okay, I know she's already great at that, but seeing her fucking pump out the straight punches and get it done on the feet also before she had to get to that is what is most fascinating for me. So that's kind of what I want to see from Shavkat. I want to see him tested. I think, I'll assume he's going to pass the test here, because I do think that some of the physical advantages that he has are going to help him in this fight. The height and reach advantage is going to be there, and we've shown that he's an unconventional but effective striker with plenty of power also. Let me take a look at some of his stats and see, to kind of paint a picture a little bit. So yeah, all finishes, half by 8 wins by KO, TKO, and 8 wins by submission. So it would be interesting if we see Geoff Neal kind of force this to go to a decision. What was your prediction going to be? What method? I know you said Geoff Neal, but are you calling by finish, decision, or
cumulative strikes, TK, like a knockout in the third round?
So probably TKO.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting one. All right.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No, I think it's a valid pick. I don't think it's an absurd pick at all, man. I mean, Geoff Neal is looking better than he's ever had right now. If there's any time to make that pick, it's coming off of these recent wins that Geoff Neal has had, because he had to dig deep for that Santiago Ponzinibbio fight also, and we value experience around these parts, man. We really do. Gamrot Turner, fuck this fight, man. This is a big upgrade from Dan Hooker. Jalin Turner was he was getting what I would come out and say, I'm not worried about being disrespectful to Dan Hooker here. He was getting a real softball. It was a much more favorable matchup for him.
Softball in the matchup, from the matchup perspective, not softball as fighting against the type of guy. Mm-hmm. He wasn't fighting Chris. We'll shit on him again. He wasn't fighting Chris Moutinho, but it was just a perfect matchup for him. Yeah,
and then and also a marquee name, a name that a lot of people still kind of have on their tongues, and that is a lot more recognizable to people than Mateusz Gamrot. Most people still probably can't even pronounce Mateusz's first name. So Dan Hooker would probably have got him, even with a win over both guys. With a win over Gamrot, Jalin Turner's really going to arrive for guys like you and I. We've been pretty high on him for now, but a win over Dan Hooker arguably would have done more for him promotionally, in the bigger picture. Mateusz Gamrot, coming in off of his most recent loss to Beneil Dariush, where he was probably vying for a number one contender fight. Maybe, I don't know, because even right now, Beneil Dariush won that fight, and he's not in a title fight, so maybe that's not completely right, but he's definitely faced like some of the stiffest opposition that you can face as a guy coming up in this lightweight division. Beneil, Arman Tsarukyan, Diego Ferreira, Scott, in his first fight, Guram Kudladze. So a lot of potential
and all the
there.
Gentlemen he took on, and he was a KSW champion.
KSW double champ, coming into the UFC at 17-0. He's now 21-2. And on the other side of the cage, Jalin Turner with a record that is a bit deceptive, 13-5. It's not, if you're just looking at the numbers, you might not think that he's bringing a whole ton to the table, but he's a guy who also has a pretty good wealth of amateur experience, and as of late has really been putting it together.
Fucking role, psycho role, like a scary role. A lot of guys in the UFC that are steamrolling right now, he is like top 2 or 3 of just like, whoa, what in the fuck if this guy puts it together,
riding a five fight winning streak, all via finish. Brad Riddell,
we're talking about Drew Dober. the white excellence, Drew Dober.
He has the mounted guillotine win, round 1 mounted guillotine win over Brad Riddell, which if I remember correctly, he may have potentially retired Brad Riddell in that fight.
That was a scary one.
Yeah,
that was like a good lord, Jay. Take it easy on the papas.
Yeah, and finish wins over Jamie Malarkey, Uros Medic, hope I'm saying that right, Brock Weaver, Josh Kulabau, coming in with a lot of momentum here, and I think a guy who's probably kind of coming into his own and figuring out how to effectively use his frame, man, because a lightweight at 6'3" with a 75.5-inch reach and only 27, Jalin Turner's really like turning the corner. Not to, that wasn't unintentional. Jalin Turner turning the corner, but yeah, it really does kind of look like that. He's turning the corner here in his career, and showing up and showing out. But most of his finishes, or most of his wins, he hasn't won any fights by decision. And if we know anything about Mateusz Gamrot, is he's incredibly hard to finish. Let me see if he's ever even been finished. He's only lost 2 fights by decision. Yeah, he's never been finished. Jalin Turner only does work by finishing fights. 69% of his wins by KO, TKO, and the other 31% by submission, obviously. So this is a tough one here, because I feel like it's all going to come down to the scrambles. It's going to force if Jalin Turner gets the win here, it's going to be a big sign that he's leveled up, because it's forcing him to get a win, a grueling win by decision. That's very, very hard to do. We know Mateusz Gamrot is incredible in the scrambles, super hard to keep down. I mean, Arman Tsarukyan couldn't keep him down, and a lot of us, you and I both think that Arman actually won that fight. But still, if for what it means in the context of this fight and what Jalin Turner would have to do, Jalin Turner has to come out and put hands on this man and be the first one to finish Mateusz Gamrot. Do you think that he gets that done?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to take Jalin Turner, the spider salesman. He's going to. He's not going to. I don't think he's going to like smoke him with like a one punch, like high kick type of like walk off, but I think he's gonna put it together and get a TKO in the second round.
I'm just I'm looking at his opponents, and even from the guys that I named off, and trying to think like who's the closest we get to someone who kind of presents the same stylistic matchup against Jalin that Gamrot is going to give him. And none of them jump out to me.
Yeah, I was trying to find that too. Like, okay, who can I go watch? What fight can I go watch that kind of like makes even a little bit of sense, and there really is.
And I mean, that's to no fault of Jalin Turner's. I mean, some of it might be, obviously we're not going to be familiar with a lot of the guys earlier in his career when he was in the regionals. But none of the guys, the names that we recognize anyways, certainly don't present the same kind of stylistic matchup. So there's a lot of mystery going into this one for the sake of being different, and because I've been kind of a Gamrot fucking bandwagon guy since he came over to the UFC. I will pick Gamrot, but here's the thing, I don't know. I don't know. Nothing's going to surprise me in this one.
I don't know, dog. I am more confident in picking Neal Magny.
I can see that. Yeah, because you know what it's going to look like for Neal Magny to get it done, but just the size and regardless of how good Gamrot is in the scramble, I think that despite how jacked and shredded the guy is, he looks like he might lack strength though, because he's just always in a flow state of wrestling. But we haven't quite seen Gamrot hold a guy down and dominate him positionally. It's more just to kind of be like, no, you're not going to keep me down. Or if I'm having trouble on the feet, I'm going to turn this into a scramble and disrupt your momentum or your rhythm. But I also don't see Gamrot having the finishing. I mean, he has the finishes over Scott Holtzman, Diego Ferreira, which is a weird one because he's like need him in the liver. And so he got that there too. So it's like he gets his finishes in weird ways. He's got that Kimura over Jeremy Stevens. Granted, that's Jeremy Stevens. Yeah, man, this one's a hard one to predict. A hard one to predict how it's going to go. I think it's kind of a pick 'em, really. Despite how deceptive Jalin Turner's record is. It's an eye test sort of deal to kind of revert back to that and kind of give that whole excuse out there. We've seen the noticeable improvements that Jalin Turner's made, and his opponents have fucking felt that improvement for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we're on the record. You're on for Jalin. I'm on for Gamrot. Fun fight, super exciting one. Two rising prospects in the lightweight division. I can't even call Gamrot a prospect anymore. I mean, he's been in there and just kind of on the edge of contendership. So this one's going to give us a lot of answers, and it's going to make for some interesting matchmaking moving forward too, because if Jalin Turner gets the win, man, there's a lot of fights scheduled in this lightweight division where we're going to be talking about him matching up with the winners and upward and onward, man. It's going to be tough we're talking about Beneil Dariush not getting his shot, man. There's going to be a line of guys right behind him who are going to be knocking on the door too. And not to move on, not to get off topic as far as like the whole thing going on with Volkanovski wanting that rematch with Islam, and Dana White apparently being down for that, and I'm not excited about the idea that both of these divisions are going to get held up even longer, because we got fights like this happening that are going to keep moving guys up the ranks, and it's just going to get so tough, man. We're going to see these guys start to knock each other off even more than they already are before they get to contendership. So what do you think about that, by the way? But before we move on to the next fight, the idea that it looks like they're moving towards doing the immediate Volkanovski Islam rematch.
I think Islam's a bitch. He has one rough outing, and then his mom's already telling him to fucking retire. Pussy. Two, I just think that would be terrible altogether. Like, go fight Yair, please. Islam, go take the beating you deserve from Mansour. You can quit fucking ducking him. They're just, I think in both, it's just a huge disservice to both divisions. It's a huge disservice to the sport. It's a great fight. We all want to see it. But I just think even more so, Islam will win that fight, especially because it'll be in a country where he's allowed the IV, where, so, you know, however that works out. Yeah, I just, I hate it. As much as I would love to see it, and I'll watch it like a dirty little a pig, just a greedy, slutty little pig, I'll watch it, but I won't be happy for the guys that deserve the shots. Like Beneil, goddamn, dude, Beneil's getting older, and
yes,
you know, and he's done nothing, but all he's done is deserve and prove every fucking week, you know. I don't want to see another Tony Ferguson deal, you know. Yeah. Just fucking, you guys, come on.
And to the people that I'm seeing in Instagram comments and stuff like that who are like, yeah, no, it was a great fight. Nothing else makes sense right now. Run it back. Let's do it again. Who cares? Watch this fucking sport.
Make more sense, dude.
Like, please take a moment to watch this sport and actually look at dudes in these divisions who don't have the belt around their waist, because if anybody thinks that this makes perfect sense, I'm sorry, you're not watching it. You don't know who the contenders in these divisions are. You're entertained by shiny things. You want to see shiny things fighting against shiny things, and I get it. I get the appeal of two champions facing off against each other, but let them build their legacies a little bit first, because this is the same thing I was saying before their first fight was booked, when they were just starting to talk about it and it wasn't for sure that they were going to fight each other, was that we never got this fight, but the GSP Anderson Silva super fight that never came, that people wanted for a long time. That was a very coveted fight because both of those dudes were deep into their title reigns. They had already cleaned out their divisions at least once over, both of them, and that fight would not have been as in demand or nearly as special or coveted if Anderson Silva had just won the belt and GSP was like 3 or 4 defenses in. Like, I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, yeah, still obviously we'd be like, fucking put that fight into my veins, but the reality of that was those are still new guys on the scene, and I think that there's something to be said about the kind of reach that you could, because of the proliferation of social media in that time too. Like, we weren't following GSP and Anderson Silva on Instagram back then. Instagram wasn't even a thing, or it was barely a thing, you know. So I mean, there's that.
Didn't have YouTube channel, or like GSP wasn't killing it on his cooking show, you know.
Yeah, like so I mean, they were
so his mom wasn't just fucking butting her fucking her veil, or I mean, I'm pretty sure like she wasn't like telling him he needed to quit, you know. So
yeah. So I mean, it's a different landscape, it's a different world in MMA. I think that it really lacks imagination that people are ready to do an instant rematch for this one, man. It bugs me that I'm really confident that the people who want that, like, they can't name the top 10 of either division.
NPC if you want that, like, you'd have to be an NPC to want that. Like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's such an American take, like the instant gratification. Like, just give it to me now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, dude. You know what made this fight great was that Volk had this meteoric rise, and he beat Jose Aldo, and he beat all these guys to get to this point. He went through the trials with Ortega. He fucking put Max in his place. He fucking beat everybody, and Islam had to fucking knock out Charles and had to lose to Arman. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had to go through all of that to get to this point. So that's what made it good. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like eating dessert first.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't do that every fucking time, guys. Like, that's like going to McDonald's and then eating the apple pie right away, and then like you can't get through the fries because like you just want the sweet. Like, just start with the fries, dude.
Oh, good, great point. Let's see what's next on the docket. We have the official debut of one Bo Nickal, 3-0, wrestling. Fucking, I'll just call him the champion of everything except for
dude. White excellence. White excellence, Bo Nickal. Thanks, guys.
Bo Nickal got himself a haircut.
Why we are where we are. Yeah, because of guys like Bo Nickal built this country, dog.
You like the streets that you're driving on?
Hey, bud. You ever heard of the Crusades? Sit back. Let's talk about that.
One thing, I was watching Bo Nickal on Helwani, and he got a haircut apparently, because he's got a pretty.
Not on camera like fucking John Jones.
Bo has a healthy, stylish head of hair, and his reasoning for getting that haircut, he doesn't want if guys land on him and with punches, he doesn't want his hair moving around, selling those punches more than it should. Which for a guy at only 3-0 making his UFC debut to be thinking like that already, I think that kind of gives us to anybody. You know, I mean, I'm gonna be realistic here. I'm not watching collegiate wrestling or keeping up with that shit. I'm really excited about when a guy like Bo Nickal, who I know kind of has a decorated history as a collegiate wrestler, comes over and makes the jump over to MMA. But I'm not really expecting anybody making their UFC debut to be thinking that deep and playing chess like that already, you know, before he's even making his debut. He's facing off against the 13-8 Jamie Picket, the Night Wolf. Jamie Picket, 34, 6'2", big. I mean, they're middleweights. I keep forgetting. It's so weird because Bo Nickal doesn't strike me as middleweight. In my mind, keeps defaulting to thinking that he's coming into the welterweight division, but I had to remember he's coming into this wasteland of a middleweight division. Jamie Picket is well, what can I say about what Jamie Pickett's going to present? He's not going to have anything for Bo Nickal here, I don't think, man. He's got a lot of wins by KO, TKO, but I think he's been in this sport for a while now, and I think let me see. Jamie Pickett made his amateur debut in 2008. He's been around the block.
Jordan Wright does not look good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the Jordan Wright who just got yeeted out of the UFC. He is. And we're not saying any of this to be like, oh, they're not giving fucking Bo Nickal a good fight here. It's not to tear down Jamie Pickett, but it's to kind of illustrate that they're slow rolling Bo Nickal, at least, you know, this early on. But Jamie Pickett's still been around the block and is a semi-recognizable name who, when matched appropriately, will give you an entertaining fight. I was about to say, you know, he is 2-4 in his last 6 fights, dating back to 2020. So definitely past his prime, kind of weathered Pickett, who really is just a present experience, I think. And I don't mean giving Bo Nickal experience, but I mean he's going to go in there with a certain amount of veteranship and experience on his side that is hopefully going to test Bo Nickal and not just be a guy who's going to get ran through. With that said, I think Bo Nickal's going to run through him because no guy in this division is ready for the kind of wrestling and pace that Bo Nickal's going to put on them. I don't know if you have anything you really want to add to that, but I'm assuming it would be to sell Bo Nickal and get people excited for him.
Please wear the Crusaders helmet and chainmail. Walk into the fucking ring for me, dog. Just one for the boys, huh?
I feel like a lot of guys with that like Viking script text tattoos are going to be really, really excited about Bo Nickal's debut. Okay, correction. Those guys probably don't know who the fuck Bo Nickal is. But
after this, they're like, "You ever heard of this motherfucker?" And they're going to be smoking at their 10 o'clock break at their union job, like, Bo Nickal, fuck yeah, brother. Like, because end of friendship with Bryce Mitchell, new friendship made with Bo Nickal this weekend, dude.
It's that Toy Story meme. Like, I don't want to play with you anymore. Yeah, man. That's
or the distracted boyfriend where it's like they're wearing the MAGA hat and it's like Bryce Mitchell. They're holding Bryce Mitchell's hand, but they're looking at Bo Nickal like, why you fight?
Oh man, and to be clear, I don't even think Bo Nickal is
Don't
like
even
that,
put that on Bo, dude.
No,
he's probably like the coolest fucking guy ever. I'm just being a piece of shit.
He seems like, he does seem like a good guy, but I mean, he has such a corn-fed white boy name too that I wouldn't blame anybody from the MAGA camp to be like, oh, this is our guy right here. It's so funny, man. I'm expecting big things from him. Yeah, man, I'm expecting big things from him, and they're really setting him up for success here. Jamie Pickett, like I said, I don't want to dig on his record so much, but yeah, I mean, we don't got to spend so much time on it. But I don't, just because we're not giving.
The fight's gonna go, Doc. Let's be real. This fucking breakdown's longer than the fight's gonna go.
Yeah. we'll cap it off. We'll cap it off by saying, do not miss this fight.
Yeah,
by all
absolutely
means,
not.
You don't want to be that asshole who could have watched Bo Nickal's like debut in the UFC and you weren't there because you were like fucking flipping the chicken wings or something like that.
I just hope it's not like the Aaron Pico deal where Bellator did him dirty and they put him on like a huge card at Madison Square Garden, or like a huge card for Bellator at like Madison Square Garden. I think it was like the co-main though, but I just hope they're not,
But I don't know a whole lot about Aaron Pico. I'd imagine they probably have similar experience in the sense that they've been wrestling on a big stage and are used to competing in front of big crowds, because that was something that I picked up on that I had to remind myself of while watching the countdowns and embedded and stuff, or maybe it was just the countdown. I don't know if they had an embedded segment on him. Is that wrestling is very popular, collegiate wrestling. It's not nearly as popular as like football and all that other stuff, but we can't discount it because it's not on TV every weekend or anything like that. Like these guys are used to competing in front of big crowds who are very, very ravenous, very thirsty, knowledgeable wrestling fans, and these are crowds too where, because of the fact that it's not as mainstream and popular, those crowds are full of either your friends and family or a lot of your opposition. A
lot of in the parking lot in the truck too. Guarantee.
Absolutely, everything's a home game or an away game. Still, that's the thing too, because this is all happening in colleges and stuff. And I don't have I didn't put down any notes for him, but like I was joking around. Let's just assume Bo Nickal's the champion of everything. He didn't go to he didn't go to the Olympics, right? They didn't say anything about that on the countdown, but he's like,
it wasn't by his choice. I think he decided to take this route, I think.
Yeah. He said he's always kind of had an eye on MMA, but his wrestling accolades though. He's an international champ many times over, a U.S. champ. I didn't hear what you said.
No, I said like our breakdown of this is taking longer than the entire cumulative time he spent in the cage. Dude.
Yeah, he'll be wrapping up his post-fight interview. Do you think he's got a call out? Like, how fast do you think that he wants to burn through this middleweight division? Like, does he strike you as the kind of guy who's going to have a name, or you think this early in his UFC career he's still going to play it, be cool, and be like whoever they give me?
But I'm ready to get in there fast, and whoever they think is the best, because I think he still has to be humble though, because it's his third fight. It's like. He's like, Masvidal, where are you, you fucking cocksucker? He's not going to be like 6 and rich. But I do feel, or Connor, you piece of shit, where the fuck are you? I just think like he's going to be like, I'm ready to fight right away. I was only in 15 seconds, so I mean, I can go in a couple weeks or whatever. But him and Hamzat and Shavkat are like on a fucking that's like Cold War, fucking like missiles and Cuba, Bay of Pigs shit. That shit is fucking like they're staring down the barrel at each other, dude.
Yeah, and another thing too, Bo Nickal. I mean, he's not old, but he's also not. He's not as young. He's 27. So he's not exactly, when you hear, a guy is 3-0 coming into the UFC, you wouldn't be surprised to hear that that's a 23, 24-year-old or something. But and he hasn't quite been shy about mentioning, not necessarily calling out some of the bigger names in this division, but I mean he's also been prompted to. I mean, Ariel's going to ask him what he thinks about the champions and stuff, and I thought that it was pretty telling that he mentioned that. He asked him what he thought about the wrestling or the grappling that was happening in that fight between Adesanya and Pereira, and he said that it was cute. He said it was funny. Yeah. So I think that's not outright disrespectful kind of talk, but still, calling them out by name and giving those observations. That's going to put him at the front of a lot of people's minds, especially if he comes out and does what we're expecting him to do. But I know. The fight would be a lot shorter than this breakdown, so let's move on from this one. We know how that one's going to go. That's the biggest lock of the night, but I want to wrap this episode up before the 2-hour mark. We're at 1 hour and 53 minutes right now, and we haven't talked about our boy, the South African Giga Chad himself, Dricus du Plessis. Still knocks. He's back in action with Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson.
I'm going to go on a limb and say this is going to be the fucking what the fuck. This is going to be like the Miller Lite hits. Maybe you got a couple of lines in you, and it's going to be like, I'm ready for this fucking card, dog. You're going to be like, I'm fucking ready, dog. This is going to be the one, dude, where it's like, oh shit, I'm watching UFC right now. It's Saturday night, and I am fucked up.
Boom.
This is the fucking hell yeah, dude.
He's getting in there with Derek Brunson. I'm wondering if we're gonna get blonde Brunson. Dude, I've been fucking mistalking all night. Brunson getting in there, 23-8. Brunson, older in age than I was expecting, man. He's 39. He has not competed since he dropped a fight to Jared Cannonier in February of 2022. So he's been out of action for just over a year now, about a year and half a month. And he lost that fight via finish. And I remember that he had mentioned that after that loss, that his next fight would be his last fight. And I don't know if he's gone back on that since, because they haven't really made any mention, or that I've seen, about this being his retirement fight officially. I think it still could be, but he's not being very forthright about it. So I'm interested in seeing if we're going to see him take off the gloves, win or lose, whatever the result is here. But I will say though, I do think this is going to be the one that is potentially going to derail Dricus. I just don't feel like du Plessis is well-rounded enough to deal with the wrestling that Derek Brunson is probably going to use here, because I think Derek Brunson, if this is going to be his retirement fight, he'll want to go out on a win. I don't think he's going to come out here and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to put on a show for the people who came to see an exciting Dricus du Plessis fight. Derek Brunson, I think he's going to want to spoil the parade and get the win here and ride off into the sunset if it's going to be a retirement fight. And I think stylistically he does have the advantage here, because as exciting as DDP is, he does kind of seem, I feel like his striking is kind of telegraphed a lot. It's exciting, and he's a hard hitter, and he at least changes levels a bit, and he's not just kind of throwing these Mortal Kombat combinations over and over. But we see that Dricus looks gassed even when he's not gassed. Yeah. And we know from experience that he still has more in the tank, but he really starts
the whole time. He's probably like 3 holes deep, dude, by the time he gets to the fucking fight. That guy has to schedule training around pussy appointments, dude.
Yeah, he's climbing out of the swimming pool of pussy juice to get ready for this fight.
Fucking relaxed, oh shit, I got to fight, bitch. Excuse me. He's putting the cigarette out.
So yeah, man, I that's pretty much my breakdown of it. Is just I feel like where Dricus kind of comes up short in how he carries himself once he starts to show that that weather of the fight on him. You know, as the fight goes on, he gets a lot more predictable.
Also, Dricus pluses.
Yeah, and he doesn't really cut angles so much when he comes forward. When he starts to generate offense, he kind of comes in a straight line a bit. And like I said, I still think he's going to be an exciting part of this middleweight division for some time moving forward. But I just feel like Derek Brunson is going to be able to time those shots and kind of get the takedowns where he's not necessarily going to have to work for them as much either. Is get the takedown with timing to where, you know, he's timing it right. He's probably going to do it under. He's going to shoot under some punches from Dricus and get the easy takedown where he's going to be fresh on the ground and have time to work. I think this might be a bad look for Dricus, but I mean, if you have anything to the contrary,
Dricus in the first.
He's going to be
45 seconds in, dude.
Too slippery from pussy juice to be held down. He's just
not gonna touch me, dog.
I will say though, I think that an early finish is going to be probably what you want to see if you're in Dricus's camp, or because the longer the fight goes, if this one makes it into the third round, I'm going to assume that it's because Dricus is losing this fight. So I'll go Derek Brunson by decision. You're going Dricus by.
You're doing it, and you're being smart about it. I agree with you, but I think Dricus is just gonna fucking pop him.
Ride for your boy, dude. Still knocks.
Oh yeah.
All day. Right on time. Let's see what we're 159, 60 seconds.
Cody Garbrandt's gonna get knocked the fuck out. Put that in your fucking book, dude.
I'm scrolling back over to the fight card. Where are you? Fight card. This is the Jones versus Ciryl Gane fight. But yeah, if we're talking about fights to not miss, Cody Garbrandt's on here. Cody Garbrandt, a killer be killed fighter. Don't miss that. I mean, former champion.
That's good when you're getting lubed up, dude. Fucking Cody, fucking Dricus, just like dun 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 dun. Like, oh shit, John Jones fights tonight. What year is it, dude?
Definitely the kind of Farid Basharat on the second
Basharat,
part.
It's not a fucking party unless the Basharat brothers are involved, dude. They're taking this back for Iraq, dog.
9-0 coming in, still undefeated at bantamweight against Damon Blackshear. Blackest name in the world. Jessica Panay, Tabitha Ricci, if for my fellow WMA fans.
In either of the last two cards, we just spent like 30 minutes on it, but okay. I feel like, or at least my boy over here would have.
Oh, Panay versus Ricci?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I would put more time into Arujo versus Hibas, but I also wouldn't necessarily be praising that matchup there. That's a tough one to call. But
I do like a little bit of Amanda Hibas, if I'm being honest with you.
She's a darling, isn't she? She's that bubbling personality. I think that has a lot to do with.
I would love to see her in a Tweety Bird shirt. I'll say that right now.
Making tortillas.
Yeah,
no, I think that's probably what she could think for a lot of the opportunities that she's had.
You do hungry? Yeah, babe. I do hungry, babe.
Hey, Mamash. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed our deep breakdown of UFC 285. This is a great card, and we have more really good cards on the horizon. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about in the coming weeks. But until then, we're gonna have to wrap this up.
You please get us over the guy with cerebral palsy, please. I love him. He has an amazing show. I like it. I'm a subscriber, but I would like to kind of like get on point with him, please.
Yeah, I won't even start. I won't even start with a like and subscribe thing. No, go straight to subscribe, please.
Don't make us do WWE content, please. I can't.
Let's get the numbers up. I couldn't do WWE content if I wanted to. So far out of touch with all of that. But if you want to see, if you want to hear us talk about anything else in the world of combat sports, real combat sports,
championship, I like it. John Lineker and Sean Josh, great fight. One's got some great. They're coming to Colorado. maybe we should break down when they come to Colorado. They got Soldic fighting for their American debut. That should be pretty cool if you want us to talk about that.
And we could shift gears and talk about a little bit of Bellator too. Amasov did big things over there, and he spent the last year fighting for his country in Ukraine and shit. Even though as the sitting Bellator champion, when he went back to get his belt and decided, oh well, I'm here. I'll just go ahead and fight in a war, and then I'll come back and reestablish myself and look like one of the best welterweights in the world.
Do it shirtless and draw a cum pig on his chest and talk about Invicta. We'll do that too. Just Invicta, like he'll go full fucking WMMA for you guys, so whatever you want.
We're offering you the world, folks. Let us know. We'll listen to you, and if you want it to be business as usual, we can certainly do that too. But until next time, please like, comment, subscribe to all that stuff, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Follow us on Instagram. Should we do a TikTok? Leave in the comments.
Yeah. All right, goes. Have a good one. Don't ever step on my outro again, fucker. All right. Have a good night, everybody.